Now, I'm confident in saying that our 3 creative contributors don't have clean fingernails. I'll tell you why. One is a potter, so she has clay under her fingernails. One is a natural fibre dyer. I know that she's got blue fingernails. And the other is a linocut printer. She has black ink fingernails. Our other 2 panellists have cleaner hands, and I'll introduce them very shortly. So let's get to know our panellists. So first of all, let me just click my little button here. So first of all, I want to introduce Pat. Now, Pat is a potter, a ceramic artist, but I wouldn't assume or presume to explain exactly what Pat does. So first, I think you've been in business longer than Jen and Haychley, so you're going to give us some insights as the evening goes on. But just as a sort of quick-potted look at what you do, Pat.
Okay, good evening everybody. Hello, I'm Pat Southwood, as you can clearly see. I've been a potter professionally since 1999, since I graduated. I set up my workshop at Cossey's Yard in Salhouse. I wood-fired for a long time, but I stopped doing that last year, and I am now throwing and hand-building with black clay and making work based on my many visits to Japan over the last 20 years.
And I can also say that if you want to do a workshop with Pat, it's great fun. And I have a wobbly pot on my dining room table, which I'm very proud of. And our next panellist, again, somebody I've got to know very well, is Jennifer. So Jen, you now have the talking stick. Tell us about Fibre Workshop.
I work with...
Hold your mic up a little bit higher, that's it. Yeah.
I work with yarn. I produce knitting yarn from Norfolk horn, which is Norfolk's indigenous breed of sheep, and I'm a natural dyer. I teach natural dyeing as well as doing myself. I grow my own dye materials, lots of woad, lots of indigo from my woad, and I also knit for TV and screen as well. So I have quite a diverse business.
So you
connected and around wool and sustainable fibres.
And you knitted, is it tank tops or cardigans or shawls for little women?
Yeah, I knitted quite a lot.
We didn't hear from Jen for quite some time. You were busy, weren't you?
Yes, yeah. That was probably my highest profile film. Yes, yeah. Quite a few pieces went through the whole film. I wasn't the only one. There were other knitters there as well. I stressed. So yes, yeah. So.
And when Jen does have time, we're both in a guild of weavers, spinners, and dyers, so we like to bother yarn as much as we can, don't we?
It's spinning that got me into this mess.
So let's have a chat with Haychley. So just keep forgetting. Tech Bart. So Haychley, there you are. I chose that because that was such a lovely photograph. One of your.
So I'm Haychley. I'm a linocut printmaker based here in Norwich. I gave up my job last May to do this full time. So I do markets and events where I sell my prints online, and I also teach linocut sort of around Norfolk. So that's how I sort of make my money.
And you're a newbie at the Norfolk Makers Festival, and I have to say you have put so much effort into the free activities and the workshops that you've provided for visitors.
Thank you. It's been really good. On Sunday, there must have been well over 100 children who came and printed like a little Eliza Thornberry, like up there, or a little Totoro, or a little character print. So it's been really good.
Standing. Yeah. Well, not right now, but you're still standing. So we have the people with the clean fingernails now. So with us is Will. He's the Business and Innovation Manager at Norwich University of the Arts. And on his bio, it says he spends his time guiding and advising creative graduates as they launch their small businesses. So it's your job to advise them as they go out there into the big wide world. What is the sort of main advice that you give people when they think, I like doing this, I want to run a business?
Well, the biggest piece of advice is to do it. A lot of people are fearful of taking a step out of the ordinary, of the traditional path. And I spend a lot of my time trying to teach that there is more to life than just a business that pays your rent. There are ways you can explore, learn, grow, and get experiences and are much more valuable than just the money that comes out of this. And so, yeah, I try to preach that as best I can and get them to just try things and see what happens.
Be brave.
Exactly.
Are the young generation brave?
They are, although today I had a group of 40 students in the lecture hall down on Duke Street, and I was doing my first business lecture with them. They're all second years. They're actually game art design students. And I always do a little bit of I call it my grey talk. It's a mixture of doom and gloom and sunshine and inspiration. And at the end of it, I always finish it with the simple question of, are you scared? Is this scaring you right now? And about 60% raise their hand every time. And it's that fear that is the hardest thing to overcome for most people. It's not skill. It's not, in many cases, money. It's fear of failure. It's fear of success in some cases as well. And so, yeah, a big part of my role is helping them get over that fear and being the person there to catch them if things go wrong.
Sure. And our fifth panellist, I've pressed the wrong button there. There we are. So that's Tim. And Tim Cook is a trainer and coach in management and business development with Mentor here in Norwich. So we've heard about how students can be scared, or people who want to start off in business can be scared. How can you make them feel less scared?
Well, I think it's first of all worth saying that we're an enterprise agency, and there are enterprise agencies up and down the country, so I'm aware that people are joining us from Zoom. So we predominantly look after Norfolk and Suffolk, and you've already alluded, and you've alluded to, Will, that it's quite a scary place, I guess, for many of you when you're starting to make these decisions. And actually, it can be a very lonely place as well. So we're a group of professionals who are really there to focus, and we make our purpose to really help people to start, to run, and to grow their business. So at all phases of your business as it develops, we are there to help you and to support you through a whole variety of different things. So I guess I'm here to a large degree to help you to understand the support that's available for you. The other thing I would say is the good news is if you're in Norfolk and Suffolk, we're a funded organisation. So that means everything we provide to you, and it is a vast amount of support, is free. And I emphasise that it's free. So do not sit there feeling you're on your own. Do not sit there feeling lonely and unsupported, because we can help you. We can also help you to put you in touch with other people who are in similar situations, or indeed people who are, in a way, mentors. They've been there before you. They've experienced the situations you're experiencing. So I guess I'm here to help you there. Don't despair if you're not in Norfolk or Suffolk. Look up your local enterprise agency and get in touch with them, because I'm sure they'll be able to offer you very similar support that we can offer to these people here tonight.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Chris. Well, if you could pass the microphone back down the line to Pat, if you wouldn't mind, because what I'm interested in, and what a lot of people are interested in, I think, is if you love what you do, and you know, a lot of us in this room love using our hands and doing creative stuff, what was the tipping point where you decided you would go into business, or was that always your plan while you were studying at university?
Yeah, I didn't turn a craft into a career. I wanted to be a potter when I left school. I desperately wanted an apprenticeship, but I couldn't get one. There was no one in Norwich that could give me one because of their financial constraints at the time. So the whole thing got shelved. My parents' solution was that I became a florist, because obviously that's working with your hands, so that's fine. I didn't get a chance to pursue what I wanted to do until we had our first child, and then I had a chance to go and study at Lowestoft College, where I did an OND in design ceramics. Excuse me. And I'm afraid I went into the whole thing with, I'm going to come out of this ready to run my business. And that was the attitude I took throughout the whole of my degree. I must be a course leader's nightmare, I'm afraid. I was the one saying, excuse me, when are we going to have the business lectures? When are we going to have this? When are we going to have this? Whereas the guys that were maybe 18 or 19 weren't thinking quite so far ahead, and it was a nice day, so they'd be off down the beach. I went in with a bit of a plan.
And so, Jen, what about yourself then? So, you know, you enjoy your textiles, clearly you do, and you're still in business doing it, so there must be really many, many good sides to running a business and doing what you love. But what would you say when you first started out? What were your main challenges? What did you face that perhaps wasn't quite so much fun as you hoped it would be?
It's the business side of it, I guess. It's like, it's knowing you're passionate about something, especially if you come into it with a passion and a sort of an obsession with what it is that you do, whatever it may be. With me, it's wool. I can't help it. It's just there. So yeah, but it's the business side. It's knowing I can make things. I love making things, but it's like the bookkeeping, the accounting, the marketing, and it's as we've had this discussion. It was the marketing thing that's the most important, because you could be the most spectacular artist and make the most beautiful things in the world, but if the walls of your workshop see what you've done, then then enjoy the hobby.
Well, let's talk about marketing, actually. So, Haychley, I mean, you're the newbie and the younger creative. They were all beautifully young, but you're the youngest one. So would it be okay for me to say that you're probably more au fait with social media marketing than perhaps?
I was going to say, it's a huge part of my job. So I don't want to admit this really, but if I look on my iPhone at my statistics, some days I'm spending like 5 or 6 hours on Instagram, but it's such a huge, that's where I get most of my sales from, basically. So putting time into making videos and tutorials, promoting prints, that's, I'm sat on the sofa and I'm on Instagram. My partner's like, "Are you not working today?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is work." And it sounds daft, but putting the time into online platforms, that is how I sort of make money. It sounds strange, just sort of glued to a phone all the time. But I couldn't do my business without it.
So does that detract from the joy of doing what you're doing? Because it does, as you say, it soaks up a lot of time, and also it's never ending. It's like a very hungry animal, isn't it? Social media and websites are hungry animals. They're never sated.
Instagram, you can't ever feed it enough, basically. But I've sort of learned to love it. So I guess you two as well. You have certain crafts that are good for time lapses and making things. And if you get over that, this is such a drag. So I just put my camera on and a sort of bird's eye view when I'm making things, and I record that, and that's my content for the day. So if you can sort of make it part of what you do each day rather than, I've got to create this video today, then it becomes quite fun. I want to say fun. I actually enjoy making all the videos and all that content side of things, which is lucky. So it's a huge, I couldn't do it without it, basically.
And is the marketing, you're mentoring your students. I mean, that is extremely important, isn't it, marketing?
Absolutely. I mean, I always talk about it as two people. We train, as a university, we are very good at training you to be an artist. And we spend a lot of time developing those skills and lifting them up, and they are fantastic. But that is the product. That is the thing that sits on the shelf. Exactly what you said. If no one knows that you're creating that, you're in real trouble. I will say one thing on the social media. One of the things
Tell me off for so many hours on Instagram.
No, you're doing wonderfully. Obviously, there's always a question of, you need to make sure that wherever you're talking to people, it's where your audience are. Instagram is a fantastic place for anything visual.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So you've got to find your platform.
The little rule that I came across that I really like and I teach is 60, 30, 10. When you're trying to figure out what you should be posting, start with 60% social interaction content, not your own original content. Look at this thing I found, it's really pretty, tagged. By tagging and interacting and reaching out, you're going to expose yourself to different audiences, because they come back and have a look at your post and say, that's interesting. You then have 30% basically production content, showing what you create and basically increasing your authenticity. With craft, with handmade stuff, people love to see the story behind it. So 30% of your stuff is you showing what you're making, and then 10% is buy this, please.
It's really hard.
But it's
to go from this is how you do it to, I've started doing, I make characters, like I say in the tutorial and the Winnie the Pooh. So that really drives people to it. So I make a little print of like a Winnie the Pooh, or I don't sell them because copyright and I get sued, but I make them, I carve them my own time, and me doing that then brings traffic to my Instagram, which brings traffic to my website, basically. So doing things, essentially like that to drive people, I
haven't got anything to add. That's
Okay.
exactly right.
You just wanted to hold the stick. So if you wouldn't mind passing that to Jen, because here's a thing that I hear time and time again, is that people don't necessarily have a full appreciation of the time it takes to make something that's handmade, and because of course there's a vast difference between the price that you might want to, the price tag you might want to add on to something that is from hand-spun Norfolk horn, hand-dyed with indigo that you've grown in your own garden, and then spent hours and hours and hours knitting, and they say, well, I can buy something like that in Primark. You know, I mean, that's a slight exaggeration. Have you? So tell me about what you discovered there and what the pitfalls are there.
I come it from more of a, it's a sort of a hobby that grew into a obsession that grew out of hand, so I was never quite sort of as yeah, that's where I'm going and that's what I need to do. But so I've kind of learned along the way, and it quickly became apparent that as somebody, say, like anything like with textiles or with sort of knitting that takes so many hours to produce, you cannot build a business on it. That's why I do the TV and the costume stuff, because they are the ones with the budget, and they actually understand what it is that I do, and they will pay me for my time. And even then, I probably don't earn minimum wage, but it's something that I can do whilst I'm doing something else. So it's not, you know, it's not 100% of my time. It's something I do with my downtime. I'm a twitcher. I can't sit still. So it's like I'm making money, sitting watching telly. It's great.
Well, sorry, Jen. I was chatting to some of the quilters who were here at the festival, actually, and they were saying you cannot make some money out of textiles, but what they said was you can make money out of is patterns.
Patterns, yes.
So yes, have you gone down that route yourself?
I have just started to. I mean, I'm a sort of. I've been growing the business slowly, and I'm fortunate because I had a career. I paid my mortgage. I don't have to pay rent, so I'm free of that kind of really, really heavy cost. So I'm fortunate that I can. I've forgotten what the question was.
The question was that patterns and that sort of thing.
Yes.
I've just been asked on WhatsApp. Can all the speakers just hold the mic a little bit closer to their mouths, just so that we thank you.
So and I kind of look at the skills that I have and the things that I do, and whilst I say I can't actually make, I can't earn a living from doing the thing that I love doing, like with the knitting and producing, but I can actually produce something once, make a pattern, put it online, and then it will make money for me for the rest of forever. It'll do it while I sleep. So, which means I can digital downloads, and there are platforms to do that. So that's a great way. If you can do that with your craft or what it is that you do, then it's no longer reliant of you being present at the time that you're making money from it.
Does that translate into the pottery business?
I was just thinking. I was just thinking quite how messy that might be. Potential digital download with.
Well, what about commissions then? I mean, as you say, you love doing your pottery and so on, and you know, the workshop. I'm going to guess that actually creative people, and I could be completely wrong, don't actually relish doing the beginner workshops. You can be honest. Is that just a way? I'm sorry, because I did one with you. But,
she's not putting me on the spot here or anything.
No, but I mean, is that a good way to earn some money?
In all honesty, I don't know a potter or a ceramicist or a ceramist or whatever you want to call us, a mudslinger, that earns a living without teaching as well, regardless of whatever level that teaching is at. I've taught as a lecturer on a ceramics degree. I've taught adult education. I did that for a long time. And now I teach from my workshop because I'm getting on a bit and it's easier. It's nice to have a constant stream of new people. It's nice to have a constant stream of fresh blood, if you like. And without sounding too harsh, they're all exiting via the gift shop.
Yes, we do. I noticed that. Yeah.
And also, you're meeting lots of new people. They're clearly interested in ceramics, or they wouldn't be there for a taster session in the first place. So you've got lots of people that you can then invite to exhibitions. You can tell them what your next event is, and you're building up a guest list, basically. It's much. I have to say, it's much nicer teaching in my own workshop on my level, how I want to do it, when I want to do it. That's by far the nicest teaching I've done throughout the whole of my career.
Let's bring Tim back in here, actually, I'm just passing it down the line, just to talk about networking. You see, that, I mean, as a business mentor, I mean, there's a huge benefit in this, obviously, in getting your name out there. Is that are they the sort of services or advice that people can get from you, how to actually create that? Because you're sitting on your own with your potter's wheel or whatever you're doing, but actually you've got to get out there. Not easy.
It's a really interesting question, actually, because I was thinking when you were saying about the marketing side, you're marketing your business, you're marketing your product, you're marketing yourself, you're marketing your brand. And the marketing, many people go across to the digital marketing piece and to the social media because it's very fashionable, and actually you can reach so many people, and it's absolutely spot on, fantastic. But many of you are going to be local tradespeople, and another great way of marketing yourself and your business is by the networking piece, networking others with others similar to you. So it might be sometimes networking with others very different to you and finding the forums to do that. And, you know, certainly Mentor, we offer networking sessions every month. I know a lot of business forums will do that. Find the local forums in your city, in your county, and get yourself out there. We've just run a mentoring session, well, I suppose it's a networking session and mentoring session, really, this morning in the bid just at the entrance of the forum, actually. So we had about 30 people there for 3 hours. We also throw in a little bit of an educational piece, but they spend a lot of time exchanging cards, talking to each other, letting each other know what they're doing. Because the other thing is you've got a common denominator, and that is you're all trying to reach out to others. So for every person that you impress who is a self-made business person, they will have a whole load of clients and customers that actually could become clients and customers of yourself. You know, they've got other needs. They've not just got the needs that they're having fulfilled by the business person you're talking to. They will have other needs that you can actually step into. So I think networking is a huge part of it, and it's actually a very enjoyable part of it. I think you probably maybe not, maybe not actually, like it, but some people love it. Yeah, but that's an interesting point as well. If it's not what you're comfortable with, we can also offer, and strangely, we just recently put together an event where we can help you with how to network and how to go about it, how to have that first cold approach with somebody. So there's even help out there for you in terms of how to go about networking and look cool on the outside, even though you might be terrified on the inside. So that's what I'd say about networking, crucial part of it.
And let's talk about the, while you've got the microphone there, there's probably for a lot of creative people, they won't always necessarily have that hard-nosed business approach to things. Very different breed. I mean, I see it very clearly in the events that we deliver here at the forum. There's now so strange as folk. I mean, everyone's very, very different. And you've got to be two different people, haven't you, to be able to love your creativity but want to make some money. Is that possible? I asked the whole panel, but go for it, Tim. We were alluding to this earlier on before we started this event, and I would say yes, it can be a real challenge, because what you love doing very often is the hobby that is now leading to a craft, or from a craft to a career. And so that can be a real challenge, because you want to spend all your time doing the craft bit, doing the making, getting the feedback, how wonderful it is from your customers and clients. So that's where you want to spend your time. But there are some fundamental considerations that you have to put in place. And the first thing I always say is book out time with yourself once a week. Whatever you're doing at whatever stage, even if you are growing your business, it's really successful, book out time once a week where you have a meeting with yourself to think about what next. Because a lot of the stuff will happen BAU, business as usual. You need to have the discipline to think about, okay, so what about the business itself? I'm not going to go through it now, but there is I would recommend a tool to you, and I'm sure you'll have heard of it, Will, called the Business Model Canvas. And it's a fantastic tool to help you to focus on your business and all the aspects. So there's 4 little areas of the canvas, which is all about your customer, deciding what segments you're trying to aim for, which then brings in what Will said about the channels that you need to, where can I reach these customers? Demographics of those customers, will I reach them on social media? Even if it's social media, you'll probably reach younger people on Instagram, you might reach older people on Facebook, you know, all that type of stuff that comes into it. So there's a lot around the customer, the channels, even the needs that you are meeting.
Once you've considered that, then you can start to think about the resources that you need, and you can actually also think about who else can help you, whether it be partners, whether it be suppliers, whether it be people like these people on the panel today, and you think about that. And then the other part is your revenue and your costs, and you've always got to balance everything else, and that's getting back to your point, Jane. Whatever you're doing, mercenary as it might be, I'm guessing most of you are also doing it to earn an income. And there's no point in having a wonderful hobby that turns into a business if actually you can't sustain it and earn an income. And we were saying earlier on, weren't we, that one of the biggest things people do not factor into their considerations is the cost of your time. Yeah, because you love doing it, but actually now it's becoming a career. You need to cost in your time and think, how much is my time worth as well as how much is my product worth? So they were the things I would put forward to you. The business model canvas, if you Google it, it will come up and you'll see in there's a really nice model to really start you thinking about the whole business and not just the bits that you love.
Well, Will, that's great advice. Business model canvas, worth Googling. Have you got any other, really good bits of software programs or, or websites that you would direct people or direct your students to?
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with Tim. Business Model Canvas from the book Business Model Generation. Honestly, one of the best small books you can read. Just a bit of learning that I think from that's really important. Oh my God, don't write a business plan. You don't need one. Until you're in the position where you need to get a loan or some major business step, it's just a waste of time. You need to be trying things. I would say in terms of software, depends what you want to do. But we were actually having a conversation about accounting software, and I was whining about how when I was a kid, as a freelancer, I had to do it all myself with Excel, and I wasn't very good at it. And nowadays there are tools that can help you manage these slightly more annoying parts of your career. The two big names in this are FreshBooks and QuickBooks, but there are literally hundreds. And they aren't actually that expensive these days. They kind of go down the Netflix model. And so you for a single person business that's not VAT registered, you'll be looking at something about £5 a month. So manageable. The thing with all of this, though, is that all of this comes down the line. You've got, the point at which you need to be worrying about paying your taxes is once you've made at least £1,000 in a tax year. That's actually quite a big step. That's quite a big move for some people. I do realise that there will be some people here who might do that with a single transaction. Good on you. But for small businesses, that might be 200 customers. That might be quite a few people to actually buy your product. So one of the big pieces of advice I give my students is worry about the complicated stuff later. Focus on the simple question of who am I selling to, why am I selling it to them, and why are they going to buy it? Why are they excited by it? Why is it interesting? Because that's the question that demands the most of your time. I will have one more point on the
please do.
pricing.
Yes.
So I can get on a little high horse about this for a second. I work at the Arts University, and every year we kick out a good number of freelancers who go off into illustration and graphic design and all manner of different arts and textiles and all sorts of fun stuff. And one of the things I beat into them with a stick is that you have to price yourself fairly and fully. And it's not just for your own benefit. We live in a market system, and the second somebody starts charging less than minimum wage for their time, that forces the general price of that product down. It's for the benefit of every artist to charge a fair price for the work that you create. If you're an illustrator, that means charging a decent wage for every hour you work. If you're a fine artist, that means making sure that your paintings are valued at a decent wage. Not just for yourself, but for every single artist who is selling in that same market. There's my little hobby horse. I'm going to step off it.
So Haychley, if we can pass the mic back down the road there, down the line there. So yes, what are your thoughts on the pricing? What goes through your head when if you've got a business head engaged on it, or are you still going with the passion and faith, or are you using bits of software, and making plans at this stage?
Yeah, similar to what you were saying about everyone pricing fairly. I have a little sort of group of printmakers on Instagram, and one of whom has recently started charging a lot more for her prints. And we had a long discussion about this, and she explained to me, well, this is because it's limited edition and it takes me so many hours, and just her doing that has made me think, maybe I need to up my price a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Her realising the actual value of this took me 50 hours to carve and it's A2 size and it's huge, made me think, so going through what other people are doing as well, and you build up a little sort of network of friends that are doing what you're doing, was really useful.
So don't succumb to the temptation to start selling undercut. No, it's not going to work.
It's tricky. Obviously, when you're first starting, I charged way less than I should have done for prints, and then you're doing it a little while, and you think, actually, this block has taken me 40, 50 hours to carve, and it's a limited edition, so why can't I charge, sort of 40, 50 pounds when it's taken so many hours to do? But that's just confidence as well. That's learning that you are actually worthy of charging that, and that people aren't just going to. Yeah.
So Jen, where do you this confidence? When you are creating those historically accurate textiles and so on. Obviously, you've spent a lot of time researching, you're finding the right wools, all those things. What do you charge for your time when you do those things?
Well, it goes. I mean, thank you. Yes, no to a business plan, please.
I hope everyone's written that down.
Because absolutely, you just don't bother with a business plan until you need to speak to a money man. And if you need to go and speak to a money man, then maybe you sort of need to slow down a bit, build your business up, avoid debt. It will make your life so much nicer. But yeah, in terms of the pricing, I think everyone does this. You come in, it's just me. It's just this nice little thing I've made. I can't possibly. And you you put yourself down. And if you don't value yourself, how on earth do you expect somebody else who's going to buy your stuff to value you? The best piece of advice I ever got given was, you are too cheap, put your prices up. I put my prices up and I started to sell stuff.
How interesting.
Expensive things are good.
Yeah, but it's quality. You're sending out the right message. Do you want to make quality? Do you want to be proud? Do you want people to be proud of the things that they're going to purchase from you? So if you don't value it, then why should they?
And also, as an artist, whether it's a small A or a big A, you want to use. Personally, I find no joy in knitting or weaving or anything with cheap acrylic yarn. I find great joy in the beautiful natural materials, which of course cost more.
Absolutely, yeah.
Don't plan to be, but nevertheless, you could sort of downgrade and use the cheaper materials, but that's not what you started off doing, is it? I mean, and Pat, I'm sure you feel exactly the same way about quality and pricing yourself fairly.
Yeah. Very, very much so. When you first start, maybe you haven't got a lot of confidence, so you go to a small local show and you think you've priced your work adequately to cover your materials and cover your time, and you're next to somebody who's come with a product that's very similar to yours and they're charging maybe 1/10 of the price because it's just their hobby. and you don't know what to do. You think, if I say, but this is my job, you think, do they think I'm being arrogant? And it's don't try and sell to the wrong people. If I can give anybody one tip from 23 years of being a self-employed craftsman, it's don't try and sell to the wrong people. Don't take expensive wood-fired ceramics to the local craft fair, because they won't have a clue. And without that, I know it sounds a bit snobby, but without that intellectual understanding of how much has gone into the process, you can't ever expect to get a reasonable price for your work. It's not just footfall, it's the right feet. And sometimes you have to pay to be in front of the right feet. And sometimes you have to pay a lot of money to be in front of the right feet. And that doesn't always work. But that's experience, and suck it and see. If you ever want to go and do a show, go the year before, see who's there. See how many carrier bags are walking around. That is the important thing to look at. How many carrier bags are walking around. Look at the shoes people are wearing. Look at their earrings. Are they nice handmade clothes? Are they nice handmade earrings? Are they nice, are these the right people? Is this the right audience?
Skill or instinct, probably a bit of both, in identifying what your market is. When you're starting out, how do you start doing that? How do you identify the right market? I mean, that's a business skill, isn't it? It's not just enough to have the instinct. As you say, you've got to then forensically target those markets and get the right marketing platform. And if we go back to marketing and social media, I've learned over the last couple of years with the Makers Festival that the demographic that the event is extremely popular with is over 50, female, and I put myself in that category too. Not quite a large, and as you get to 60 and over, social media, all my social media marketing has been wasted on those people. It's hyper-local marketing in community group newsletters and things like that. So any marketing plan has to really cover lots of different platforms, identify your markets, and that takes some thought, doesn't it?
It does. You have to kind of think big and small as well. So, I mean, people that I was at college with promoted themselves locally and did local shows. I very much tried to promote myself nationally on the grounds that if I was successful nationally, then I would also be successful locally, and then I wouldn't have to do it twice. I don't know whether that... I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I'm judging it against, but I'm still in business after 23 years. So, yeah.
So, Jen, how did you get the business, for example, from the film companies? How did that happen?
A lot of it...
Hold it up a bit higher. Sorry.
Yeah, it's... Can I just address, the social media and what you were saying?
Yes, go ahead.
I found it a huge time sucker. Paranoid, anxiety, stress that was unnecessary, and I took a decision sort of beginning of December last year to actually... I took a holiday from Instagram and my business grew.
Have you gone back to it?
I have, but I've gone back to it in an incredibly targeted way. Instagram is where someone goes to just check me out. So I'm very, very careful. I just do the pictures, flat, dynamic. I don't do, any of the sort of reels or anything that's going to take me more than an hour. Yeah. I am not doing. No. So and I use it, and it's just an advertising hoarding. And it works for me.
So what did you do when you made that decision to stop social media, but your business grew? What did you do differently? It can't have just been not being there.
I worked out that it was networking, because like you, it's a demographic thing. Because the people that are interested in what I do, and especially with the yarns, with the fibre workshop, natural dyed, Norfolk horn yarns, it's very much a sort of a product that only certain people will be interested in doing. Not all crafters will want to buy my yarns, because it's quite niche and it's quite expensive because of the approach that I've taken. So it's like you say, getting it in front of the right people. And whilst there are some people on Instagram that do find me, most of it's been through I've marketed myself. I've got editorial in magazines. And not just knitting, sort of like related to my craft, but I've just had a piece in, say, Resurgence and the Ecologist magazine. That's where my people will be. So.
How did you get those pieces in that magazine? What did you do? Did you actually just email the editor? What did you do?
I network, and it's random network, and so this is a contact from somebody I used to work with who knows a journalist. So, and it's those serendipitous things and those relationships that you can't see a connection at the time, but suddenly you have a light bulb moment, or you'll put a connection and the puzzle pieces that work together. And this kind of goes back to where I got the knitting gig, should we say, the costume design. I was stood in a field at a craft fair and I had a random conversation with someone who sort of, liked what I was doing with my yarns, and I had a piece on display that I'd knitted, and she says, "I like that. Do you knit?" I didn't knit professionally at the time, but I was a knitter, so I thought, yes, I do. Would you like my card? And she took my card, and I thought, I'll never hear from her again. She said she worked in costumes, and I imagined it would be like end of the pier type, sort of, type of fair. And it was through that conversation, she took my card, and I just thought I'd never hear from him again. And then 6 weeks later, I got an email, would you be interested? And I said yes. So I think maybe the point is, you've got your thing, say you're a ceramicist or you're a dressmaker or something. Don't turn down those random things that could take you off in another direction, but be just as relevant to your skills and your craft. Diversity in what you do, I think. Yeah.
Let's talk about personal qualities then, because I know one of the reasons that I invited the three of you who I've got to know is because I knew that you had something to say and that, you're willing to talk to people. I've also met some artists and crafters who really are not interested in talking to the general public at all, and they tend not to be involved in the Makers Festival because that's what it's all about. It's all about teaching. People, can leopards change their spots? Can you learn that those qualities that are needed? Because as you said, the examples you've just shown, it's about having the chutzpah to approach people. It's being approachable so that people want to have a conversation with you, and then also spotting, would you agree, perhaps ask Haychley here, and also spotting that opportunity when it arises and never closing a door?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very shy and introvert naturally, but the more you do, so my first ever market, I walked in and I felt total imposter syndrome, and I was
so familiar with that, aren't we?
What am I doing here? And this about sort of 2.5 years ago, and they were all sort of amazing, and I shuffled in with my boxes. But you get more confident in what you're doing. So if I was talking about anything at university, I hated doing something like this, but now I can just about tolerate it. So the more you do these things, the more you talk to people, and if you're passionate about something, it comes a lot more easily. That I can talk to someone for ages about linocut because I know linocut. But if you
believe in what you're selling.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like I know it well enough that I could talk to someone for ages. But like you were saying about those random meetings, the amount of people I've met that are just chatting, that come up to you at a stall, and I had a lady on Sunday who works for the NNN, who commissions art pieces, and she said she loves one of my pieces and wants to talk to me. So those kind of things, that you meet random people. And like, I've never been to a networking event. I don't know if I'd be any good. I might have to come to your class of how to network. But I can imagine it's really good. And the network of friends that you build up yourself as well. And someone's doing a project and you're like, oh, do you want to collaborate and do an exhibition together? And building your own little niche of people. Gone off on a tangent, sorry. But yeah,
it's a great tangent.
Building your own sort of little network, like with physical, like friends as well as online on Instagram and Facebook, is really good, because most of the time I'm sat alone with my cat and I'm printing, and I need like doing things like this that sort of push me out of my comfort zone a bit, but I know are good for my business and good to network, and having a little group of friends that you meet up with twice a month to have coffee with, that talk about what it's like to run your small business and how someone was mean to me on Etsy or something, and you just having those people around you is really important, I think.
So let's ask our two advisors here. Are there some people? Just hand it to. Are there some people who, when they come to you for advice, you think it's just not going to work because you just haven't. You don't like other people. I mean, there are some people that just don't like other people. Or would you say that everybody can do it if they just get the right advice?
It depends on what they're doing. You mentioned there people who just don't like other people. There are a myriad of ways of running a business without ever touching or talking or even interacting with another human being these days. You can absolutely be a complete recluse and still do all right. Can I just say, though, thank you. The three of you are just... I don't need to do anything. Everything I want to say is being said, and it's wonderful. I might look into it.
At
Fair prices,
high
of course.
price.
Fair rates, of course. Very quickly, the point about friends. I'm a big believer in networking, but I'm a huge believer in if you are not a natural networker, if you are a creative, peers are the most important people in your world. Especially if you're taking it seriously, find people who are a year, 2, 3, 4 years ahead of you, and everyone in the creative industry is wonderful. It's not entirely true, but most of us are. And the vast majority of support and help is wonderful. There's a beautiful community in Norwich called Crisscross, which is run by the Association of Illustrators and run by 2 incredibly talented NUA graduates. Well done. And whenever I have a freelance illustrator, I send them to Crisscross, and Charlie and Ailish just pick them up and lift them.
Vince.
Yep, Charlie Vince.
Yeah.
Oh, I know Charlie. Yes,
Everyone knows
yes.
Charlie. Charlie's wonderful.
There's the networking for you.
Well, exactly that. It's so powerful. Anyway, back to people. There's no perfect mix for a human being who should go out and make money and do things. You can be a social recluse. You can be a huge extrovert. What you need is just that little push over the edge. You need to either push yourself or have someone force you, one or the other. But yeah, if you can find that bit of motivation to get going and to keep going, that's the trick. And that's often the thing that people find the hardest. I spend a lot of time, I'm sure you do as well, Tim, trying to motivate people to go beyond. And I've found, you have to find your trigger, the thing.
Doing a tandem skydive, you don't have to do the jumping out the plane. Someone can
The story,
jump with you.
The story that I always do, and this is true for me, the only thing that can motivate me is human interaction. If it's the old, if I wake up at 6 a.m. and I'm going to go to the gym, I will stay in bed. I will not leave. I will not send the emails I should be sending because I'm only letting myself down, and I can put up with letting myself down. I can deal with that. But if I'm going to meet somebody, if I'm going to do something with somebody else, I get out of bed and I go and do it because I hate letting somebody else down. That hurts me. And so when I was a freelancer, when I was working in small businesses, I had to have social interaction. Even if I was working on my own, I needed somebody there working alongside me to drive me, to motivate me. They weren't sat there going, "Go on, Will, you can do it." But just the act of that getting out and meeting them helped me.
I want to bring in Tim here, actually, to, if I may, just bring in a couple of questions that have come via Zoom. So let's talk about funding that might be available. Is one of the questions that's come in is, can people in their 40s get funding? But there's nothing old about 40.
I mean,
tell me about the funding landscape.
I mean, the funding landscape, as everyone will know, is wide and diverse and changes by the minute. The first thing I would say is if you are looking for purely funding, so that's different. Well, it's not different to grants, but you've got funding and then you've got grants. First of all, keep an eye very close to local grants. So you've got local enterprise partnerships, which will very often suddenly get a wodge of cash from the government, or they'll get funding from various pots. And in fact, Julie's still with us. There are things called grant finders, and the BIPC have got a very good grant finder where you can actually go in and you can have a good hunt. And actually, Julie and her team are very, very good at helping you to use grant finder to see what is about and available for you. So that's the most obvious. And the reason I say grants is because grants are usually free. And again, I'm a big one when you're starting up. If you can get stuff for free, you go for it, as long as it's quality. So, be careful of where you're getting it from. But that's the first way. The second thing is...
Local gangster.
Well, that's right, yeah. The second thing is the business startup loans. The government do a business startup scheme where you can get loans very, very cheap rates, and they're available for you. Now, unfortunately, I agree with these people. I hate business plans, and that's why I said business model canvas, because you can go onto that tool and you can start where you want to. You can start with the customer, you can start with the cost, you can start with how do I generate revenue, or you can start with who are the people I want to reach, who are the people who are going to like my products. So the business plan, the downside of the business plan is you have to follow somebody else's pattern, what's most important, all the way through your 15 pages or whatever it may be, and it disturbs your own natural thinking about your business. But you will need a business plan if you are going to go for a startup loan. The beauty about that is, though, very often, if you use the business model canvas and you take all the advice these people have offered you today, you're in a very good place then, and the business plan then becomes almost lifts and shifts and copy and paste into the places that you need to fill out. So I would say they would be the two starting points. Grant finder, go to your local enterprise, sometimes go to your local, even your councils. Sometimes go to councils, come to Mentor or other organisations like us, and we can help you to identify where you might find those. Could I also just hop back to what Will was saying, if I may do earlier, just more about the people side of things? Number one, and I'm sure the ladies, well, they've already intimated, I'm sure they'd agree. Number one is, you are brilliant at your craft. You may be a brilliant people person as well. But even if you're not a brilliant people person, as long as you focus your business first and foremost on the needs of your customer. So see every person as a person in front of you. And that's why I think it's also important, I think you touched on it earlier on, to fish in the right pools. So once you've decided, you don't have to try and be all things to all people. Pick the segment that you want to serve first and think about the characteristics of that particular customer segment. When you've done that, you can then think about how that particular segment would like to be reached and the likely ways of communicating with them. I've worked with a lot of people very recently, actually. I'm running a session actually just at the front of the forum in the bid hub. I'm doing a free session for an hour and a half where we actually help people to understand their own styles of communication, their preferences. Without going into depth now, because I know we're tight for time, you all have some natural preferences that you are born with and then slowly develop around the way you like to communicate and the way you like to influence. Some people will love getting in front of people, chatting to people. Some people would rather focus on their craft, and their biggest nightmare is actually having to talk to people about their craft. They might even be a bit embarrassed, again, because they don't think it's good enough or whatever it may be. What we can do is help you, particularly if you are that person who doesn't consider yourself a people person. We can help you to understand your own traits and your own preferences, and we can then also start to help you to identify the traits and preferences of other people and help you to know how to flex. So even though you might feel uncomfortable, you will be very confident in terms of the traits. It's almost like being a puppet and controlling the strings. You still stay authentic to yourself, but you can start to adapt the way you behave, and that can really help you in the early days of confidence. And obviously then it will become, over time, with practice, it will become learned behaviour. And I'm sure, even the ladies, I think, you seem people to me, but I'm sure there was a point where you had to learn to become that people person, certainly around promoting your own products and services. And always talk about the person's needs. Start with the needs. I see so many trying to flog their products and services. Actually, it's not a product or a service. It is a solution you have to someone's need, or a solution that is going to make someone's life better or give someone pleasure or whatever it might be. So focus on the person and the needs they have first, and introduce your products and services as the natural and logical solution to what they're looking for. Okay.
That's really great sound advice. And I have another question, because I want to start taking questions from the audience now, whether it's on Zoom or here in the auditorium. Another question is, and this might be something that Julie might be able to answer, but what do you happen to know, and any of you, what help there is to learn social media? Because it might come naturally to some people who are perhaps under 25, under 30, but if you're not, it can be pretty complicated. I mean, is there help?
On that side of things, I would say, first of all, again, part of that big free package where we'll take you right from thinking about whether you're the right person to go into business, and then right the way through all the things people are talking about. How do you actually start to form not a business plan, but your plan for your business? How do you start to shape everything? We can then take you through and start talking about, so how do you start to bring this to reality? We'll help you with the bookkeeping. We'll help you with the marketing side. And we've got a fantastic guy called Nick Pandolfi, who will actually really help you around the digital marketing piece, the social media. So we will run sessions. If you're going through the free package, it's going to be very much usually on workshop based, so a collection of you. And we will help you how to really bring that social media to life. We'll talk about search engine optimization in terms of how do you get your hits higher than others on Google searches and all that sort of stuff. We can offer help around Twitter. We can offer help around Instagram, I've heard mentioned on several occasions today. We can even talk about things like Pinterest as well. So if you're looking for guidance on the whole plethora of what's on offer, then come to us. We can help with that. BIPC, I'm sure, I think you run some spotlight sessions sometimes as well, Julie, don't you, on that?
Yeah, as Tim has just been saying and intimating, we actually work alongside Mentor, who provides some of our workshops and one-to-one advice, including social media. So spotlight on social media. But outside of that, there's also free adult learning courses that you can also sign up to. So I'd also give those a check. Continue to look at the BIPC Eventbrite pages, where all our different workshops are advertised, whether it's social media and other events. We've got books, of course. We've been talking about books and the cost of books, but don't forget we have the library service where the books are free. And I will also sort of leap back to the business model canvas, which we advocate for as a really great place to start to plan your business in whichever order that you do it. So us in the British Library have put together a package of how to help you decipher a business and where to sort of springboard your business from, whether it's a craft business or any other type of business.
Tim just wanted to add one more thing, and then I'm going to go back to our creative people to talk about online selling.
Just a real quick one, because some of you, I see quite a few of you writing down on that one. If you want to get started straight away, if you go to the Mentor website, which is www.mentor.org.uk, there are some downloads there, simple download guides. So if you go into there, you'll see the face page and then find downloads. And there are some download guides that you can just download for yourselves. They're really simplistic, so they might be too simple for some of you, but they will give you a starter for 10, so you can print it off, you can start having a look at it for yourself, and that will get you moving. I know some of you are probably quite anxious to get moving straight away, and then off the back of that, you can then book on to the programs that we offer, which will then give you the wrap around it and all the know-how and stuff, how to really bring that social media to life.
I'd like to just hand the microphone back down to our artists as well, because something was just brought up there about Pinterest, and then there's Etsy, and then there's all those other platforms. Let's just take a quick poll of 3 people here. Selling online, Pat.
It's difficult with ceramics. Ceramics are not insured regardless of who you send them with. So people are concerned about buying ceramics, which that's only sensible. If you have a name, if you're known, then you can sell online. But in my own experience, that doesn't happen until people know your name from somewhere else. People that sell ceramics on Etsy tend to be selling quite low price products. Once you start asking sort of like over £100, that's a different ball game when it comes to posting things. I had an exhibition recently in Mandel's Fine Art Gallery, and 2 of the pieces were bought by someone in London, and the gallery asked me to come in and said, will you please help us wrap these, because it's not, I'm used to doing it, they're not used to doing it, and it was a highly traumatic thing because no one will insure them. So ceramics and glass are at a severe disadvantage in that part of the market.
So Jen, easier to post your products. In fact, you've posted a couple to me with the Norfolk yarn, wonderful. So yes, online selling, do you just sell purely from your website?
I was selling just from my website because with what I do, until you can get your production level up to a certain point, you cannot do wholesale. And if you can't do wholesale, you can't sell through shops. But I'm lucky with what I do because I am so niche and it's appealing to a very specific audience. It's very local, it's very sustainable, it hits a lot of buttons with a small market of people. And it's a good brand for a couple of local yarn shops to have in their store. So as a kind of quid pro quo, I've worked out not a wholesale agreement, but as a percentage sales agreement, which means they make some profit and I make some profit. Because if it was for wholesale, I wouldn't be earning a penny from them selling. So that's that side of it. But with the online store, that's been great as well. I have my own website. I decided not to go through the Etsy route or the folksy or the big card. So I actually made my own website and my own online shop because I've been on it's been a shoestring development. So once I paid my bills, everything gets funded back into the business. So I've had to do all that myself. It's that's been interesting. But so without that, linked in with the Instagram thing, I've been able to sell to people across the country, not just in Norfolk, but it's also allowed me to advertise and build my brand, so I can have a lot of control over how I present myself with my own website.
Actually, do you use any online selling platforms?
Yeah, so I started on Etsy. So I'd recommend starting on Etsy. It's quite low risk on Etsy. And then about 6 months ago, I built my own website shop, mostly because Etsy was taking so much of my fees. So I was selling expensive prints, and it's fine for little things like greeting cards, but when you're selling larger prints, they take such a chunk. And it was super. I'm on Wix, and it was so simple to build. It's like drag and drop, build your website. But I would like to say, so I also have a kind of side business, which I sell bookmarks randomly. And all of my bookmark traffic comes from Etsy. So for that, no matter what I do on sort of Instagram, my Instagram's not very big for the bookmark shop that I have. All my traffic comes from Etsy itself, whereas my actual prints, most of the traffic I drive from my Instagram to my website. So if you need it, Etsy is amazing for that. So that's how I get most of my bookmark sales, is from Etsy. So I definitely say Etsy, and then build up your following social media, and then go on to your own website once you've got some traffic to drive to it, basically. But yeah, Etsy, and they've got off-site ads now and things. So although they take quite a big fee, they're also good at sort of promoting you, I find. So Etsy, yeah.
So I want to give our audience here in the auditorium the opportunity to ask any questions. It's not compulsory, but you're very, very welcome. Has anyone got anything they want to ask the panel at this stage? Go ahead.
I make really big, elaborate costumes. What platform would you suggest using on social media-wise?
What I'm going to do is repeat the question so that the people who are on Zoom can hear. So you make big, elaborate costumes, and you're wondering which platform is best to sell them. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, has anyone got any thoughts about that?
Yeah.
Or use the microphone if you're... Yeah, okay.
No, just from my experience, I'd probably say your own website, because Etsy, if they're expensive, they'd probably take a huge chunk of your fees, and yeah, I'd say your own website. You might have a fancy...
No, I was going to agree. I mean, there's a number of different platforms you can use to direct sell. Wix, Squarespace, Shopify, all of these tools. One thing I would say, though, that sounds like a big ticket item. I'm assuming that's a lot of hours of work into something. Yeah. Are you just selling that as a single item?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, it's interesting. I'd love to have a chat. I've got a friend of mine who's been recently showing me the wonderful world of costume design on YouTube, and the people who make money out of period design, period recreation, this kind of thing. It's a really interesting business. Yeah, there's some interesting stuff there. Just selling direct might not be the best way forward. You might find you can make more money by documenting the creation and selling that as a product. But yeah.
Good luck to you. Any other questions from the audience? Yeah, please go ahead, yes.
I'm terrible at social media. Like when you first started, I know I'm young, but it doesn't come naturally. When you first started, did you have to navigate that? How did you navigate them?
How did the panel navigate social media when you weren't that familiar?
Ask the oldest one. Yeah. I blunder about. Basically, that's, to be honest, that's it. I blunder about. If it works, I do it again. If it doesn't, I don't do it again. I look at what other people have done that they've done well and think, oh, that's a good idea. I'll have a go at that. Yeah, that's it. I'm rubbish at it, but I just keep going. And I had an email this evening, you're talking about help that's available. I had an email come through this evening from Broadland District Council. They're offering mentoring sessions on doing Instagram and doing Twitter and things like that. And they're really cheap. So I may well actually sign myself up for one of those. And I have to say, after 23 years of business, in the last hour, I've learnt 2 or 3 things.
Good.
Can I just say to you, I know it's, well, I've probably had a couple of microphones.
Yes.
Obviously, I talked a lot today about the startups. We do an awful lot of stuff for businesses like yourselves where you become established, etc. And those types of things, if you're specialising on one particular area of social media, we can actually offer workshops around about £20 for every 2 hours. Yeah, £20. I didn't want to let it go. It's very easy when we're talking to startup audiences. We actually do a lot of stuff for established businesses, and I always say no cost. It's no cost to the startups. Great news for you. Two years, of programs available. But we also do low cost for others. I hate it when established businesses, and no disrespect to great training companies, but I hate it when they go and pay a lot of money for training when actually you've got not-for-profit organisations who can do that training so much cheaper, but you've still got the same people doing it because they're people who've done all of that in the past and now they're working for Mentor or whatever. So not so much for you, but for you, that's there. For the rest of you, come through the whole programme and that will all be picked up as part of that. And a lot of our stuff we offer on Zoom as well as face-to-face, so we give both choices. So you haven't even got to walk out your house. You just come in for an hour, or 2 hours, whatever it may be, and we can help you with a lot of that stuff there, again, completely free. So go onto the Mentor website and you'll be able to see how to nominate for the small business programme for startups on there.
It does sound like there's a lot of free stuff out there. Will, you've got something to say? Yeah, go ahead.
Just some practical advice on social media. Baked into a story about animals. During lockdown, my partner, who works in marketing and e-commerce for a living, she was made redundant, and the first thing we did was get lots of pets. And she decided that she wanted to keep her hands busy and doing stuff, so she set up a little side business, which was making bow ties for cats and dogs. You can look it up, Bow Ties and Beans, very good place. When she started it, she came into this with some, she knew what she was doing. This wasn't the first time she'd been doing marketing communication. When you're starting out and you're trying to build up a social media platform from nothing, the first thing you have to get right is you have to reach out. It's not enough to post nice pictures and hope people come if you put the right hashtags. You have to actively reach out to other people and work with them. And so what she did was she wrote down the names of 10 cat influencers, which are things, and she messaged each of them on Instagram and just said, look, can I send you a bow tie? I'll give you, is a selection, pick one you like. They're about, the cost to her of the unit cost was about £3 or £4, including time. Like, can I just send you one? And if you like it, take a picture with your animal. If you don't worry about it. And 5 of them came back and said yes. And within about a week, she was getting 10 or 13 orders a day. And it's the thing with social media. It's social. You have to reach out and grab people. You don't need to go mad. You don't need to pay lots of money for things, but just reaching out and interacting with people can generate people coming to you, and then that can be converted into customers. And she just sold them off Etsy. So they came to Instagram, went to an Etsy page. That was her entire business.
Is she still doing it?
No, she now works for StartRight.
Got a job now.
It's still, she got a job. That actually helped her get a job. It still exists, and every so often I walk into the house and I find her making a bow tie. like someone else has ordered one.
Another question from our audience, if there is one. Yes, please go ahead.
I was listening to something on the television the other night, and I heard an American gentleman say, "The riches are in the niches." So, would you say that? I probably agree with that. And do you have to know from the get-go who your niche audience is, or does it occur to you after time, or is it something you have to learn?
I'll just say that again clearly for the people who are listening on Zoom. So you heard an American on TV saying, the riches are in the niches.
No, he said niches.
Niches, but he doesn't know. He doesn't know. So so it's identifying. It's back to identifying your audience, your niche. Yes, and how tricky can that be? So let's go back down the line to. I think Pat, actually, you've answered that already in some of your questions earlier, haven't you? So, Jen or Haychley, do you have anything to say about that? I think you've sort of covered that really. It's whether there's a science behind it, which perhaps no.
I think it's observation.
Observation.
The science is observation of where is the niche? Where are those people going to shop? Where are they going to look? It's finding the right feet.
What if that niche isn't something that you're familiar with? So, for example, the high-end art galleries that sell your work, were you familiar with them in the first place? I mean, were you a regular, were you a customer? Do you buy that sort of stuff?
That'd be ridiculous. I'm a potter. I can't afford it. No, it was again, like everybody else has said, it was a pure chance thing. It was just a happenstance, and I was in the right place at the right time, standing next to the right person, and I was brave enough to open my mouth.
And so our two guests here who advise people on that. Have you got any sort of slight? You have got some advice on how to identify your niche. Take it away, Will.
Weird things for weird people. That is the best way to start a business. Something unusual for a small group of people that love it. That is, the mainstream is entirely well catered for by big, boring shops. You should start by creating weird things for weird people. If you want to make that more scientific, I absolutely agree. You will have to learn. You will probably get it wrong. There is a very good book, which amusingly is the sequel to the book that the guys who wrote the business model canvas. So it's the next one, which is called Value Proposition Design, which is an incredibly business schooly term. But I teach this as a core part of everything I do with our students. It's a framework for understanding why people do what they do. And it's a really useful tool for simply categorizing and understanding why this group of people are working on it and improving that picture. So for me, the thing to do is put your finger in the air and say, I reckon it's this group. These are my weirdos. I'm going to talk to them and then learn as you go along. And be willing to accept that you're probably going to get it wrong first time. That's fine.
Well, I've got to ask you to do two things in response to somebody who has messaged. You need to say the names of the two books that you've mentioned tonight very slowly.
So, the two books that I've mentioned this evening are Business Model Generation and Value Proposition Design. Annoyingly, they're both written by people with very complicated names. Alexander Osterwalder and Yves Pigner.
So the names of those books, one more time.
Business Model Generation and Value Proposition Design.
I've got a bit of advice that's come through online, actually, for the lady in the front row who makes the costumes. So this is... so we're all connected. This is what we've been talking about. So the lady about the costumes. I'm a costume maker for theatre, film industry, and find there is a good network of people on Facebook. So does the customer in the audience... Do you do Facebook? Great. You need to connect with like-minded peers and network with those and their contacts that will buy items already made or commission you to make them. So use those networks and those groups on Facebook. That's the advice. Thank you to the person who sent that in. That's great. I'm conscious of time, and I'm conscious that we must give anybody else in the audience an opportunity to ask a question. Have anything? Because we will start to wrap up. Oh, yes, go ahead.
How to kind of juggle a full-time job with hobby?
Work-life balance.
Yeah.
Work-life. Let's go back down the line to our creative people. Not that you two aren't creative. I'm sure you're very creative in your own special way. But so yeah, work-life balance. Let's have a minute or 30 seconds from each of you on work-life balance. Is it possible?
It is, but it's hard. Mine was initially baby life balance because I graduated with a 2.5-year-old and a 7-year-old and a recently widowed disabled mother. And then I worked part-time in the evenings teaching adult education because it's a really good hourly rate. And again, it's sending more people your way. It's new people that you can introduce your work to and you can invite to exhibitions and shows, but it's blooming difficult. I was up till 2 o'clock in the morning every night. It's hard work.
What's your work-life balance like now?
Better now they've left home.
Jen, your work-life balance? Yeah, it's fantastic. Mine's more of a seasonal year balance. But at some point, if you come into it as a hobbyist that's making money, which is great because it funds your hobby, which means you can buy kit, which means you can increase your hobby. You end up surrounded by this stuff, then you start doing craft markets whilst working full time. But at some point, if you want to turn it into a business, you're going to have to jump. Either that, or you just have to take the decision, this is only ever going to be a hobby.
And you need a bigger house.
It's hard. It is hard, but at some point, yeah, you have to make that decision. Am I going to go for this and sink every fibre of your being into it to make it work? Understanding that it might not work, but it doesn't matter. At least you've tried and you've answered that question. But as I say, at some point, you will have to make that decision. Hobby or a focused, dedicated life.
I'm going to ask you about your work-life balance. You haven't had much of a balance over the last few days at the Makers Festival, but are you going to balance that out?
It's really tricky. So the first 18 months of my business, I worked full-time as well. And it was exhausting. Like I did shift work, so I was up at 3 and I'd work till midday and I'd try my best to work for the afternoon. And again, like you said, at some point I just thought, loads of things I couldn't do. So I couldn't do workshops, most markets I couldn't do because I had to work Saturdays. I couldn't do things like this midweek. I just had to do it, and so many more opportunities come available to you when you just take the plunge. But now it's like I work a million times harder than I thought I ever would, because it's, apart from the odd day off where we just say, let's go to the coast, which is amazing, one of the biggest benefits of it, or being able to go stay with family. It's like 7 days a week, 24/7 type job, but you love it. So I don't. What do you do, if you don't mind me asking?
It's just kind of textiles, I guess, at the moment.
Yeah, but I guess you love it. Yes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like work. So I get up in the morning and I do the admin bits and the boring bits, and then I carve and print in the afternoon. I was just talking to Jane earlier, and I said I was feeling quite anxious, just sort of in general, about how busy Sunday was, and I thought today might be really busy. And I was walking here, and I thought, stop being an idiot. You're printing all day, doing what you want to do. So enjoy the fact that you are your own boss and you get to do what you love all day. Yeah, I hope you get there. Yeah.
And let's start wrapping up, actually, and talk about that, the well-being, because so many of us who do creative stuff, it's for our own personal well-being. It's good for us. We love it, and you know, and all the benefits, actual physical benefits, have been well documented. Does going into business with your craft negate the well-being and that lovely feeling that you have when you're doing something, you're focused on something? Has that gone away?
No.
Jen?
No. Quick one, no.
No, and if
I love it more.
Yeah,
So,
and
yeah.
if I try something, because I'm obviously quite somebody who does, an opportunist I've been described as, if I try it, I don't like it, I'm not doing it. Move on.
Made that decision.
Stick to what you love.
Yeah.
Stick to what makes you happy and makes you smile.
So, and so, Pat, apart from when complete beginners like me get their hands on your potter's wheel, do you still enjoy what you do, and have you got a sense of well-being and peace?
Very much so. But you do have to learn to be selective, otherwise you can just find yourself 24/7 working and not doing anything else. And you say to your husband or your partner or whatever, oh, I'm on social media because it's fun, and it's not, you're busy Instagramming and you're doing all this. And you do have to take a bit of a look at yourself sometimes and think, how am I spending my time? And am I actually enjoying how I'm spending this time? I was always really frightened of Instagram until somebody described it to me as, it's your curatory space. And then I thought, ooh, hello. I like that.
Yes, you can. Yes. Sorry, just throw that microphone down to Tim here. That's great.
It's funny, isn't it? Whenever you're seeking to start a new business and you want business advice, everyone assumes you're just going to get business advice around doing your books, around setting up the business, around how do you go about actually identifying your customers and stuff. But it is also important that you do look at the well-being piece. And one of the features of what we would be able to offer you at the outset, because we're getting quite a lot of questions and it's very tight for time, isn't it? It's hard when you get different questions, different people have different things. Right at the very start, we will actually have a one-to-one with you to talk to you and identify with you, what are the things that most stress you out, what are the things you're most worried about. So one or two of the questions you're asking here. We also have a module, believe it or not, around well-being, but what that would be very much is a one-to-one with you around well-being. So we are able to tailor the programme to suit you. It would be a mixture of one-to-ones and workshops. The workshops will tend to be the more technical stuff, but it is important with any person going into business that we are talking about you personally. You can't treat every business the same. You can't treat any business as the same because they're all very different, as you've seen tonight. But that's a huge part of it, is thinking about that well-being piece, work-life balance. There are many things that we and the BIPC and other organisations can do to help you. But the big thing is to make that decision first, to contact us and get on the programme, and then we can spend time with you asking you what it is you need help with. It's not just about running your business, it's about running you, managing your time, work-life balance, all of those things. And we can tailor it according to what your needs are around that. I thought I'd throw it in because I know there's several different questions around very different things.
Yes, and I think I'll just finish off here. Will, really. I mean, that must be, being a student, being someone who's just setting out, very stressful, because you get a little bit older, you get a little bit more confident on the whole, don't you? And nothing much surprises you. But your young people that are going out there, and any young people that are here in the audience or watching on Zoom, it's all big and scary, isn't it? Be kind to yourself.
Definitely. I would also say, though, to be fair, I think it's harder the longer you leave it. I think the more your responsibilities, the more your life builds up, it becomes a bigger risk. You know, if you've just graduated and you've got a flat and, yeah, you've got like a part-time job working in a bar or whatever, the idea of doing something extra is not a vast risk. If it all goes horribly wrong, you've probably got some support. You can probably fall back on something simple. It does get trickier. The thing I would say, I think a really important thing I learned a long time ago is human beings are wonderful people to be around, and they help you through a lot. And one of the things I used to really enjoy was helping my students find people to work alongside and finding space. And I'm a big believer in, if your craft and your technique allows it, finding an external space to work from, especially if it's professional, because that can give you that work-life separation. I go to the office, I go to my studio, and I work, and then I come home and I decompress. I leave my
sit in your jammies in the studio.
And like, you know, one of the things back in the before that, I used to be able to let out some of the random desks in my building to students, so they would have a place to come and work. And it just that physical separation can help. Now, that's not always possible. You know, if your craft involves looms and large machinery, or just being really messy, that might be tricky. But yeah, finding a way to separate that headspace can be really valuable. And of course, that's an business expense. So, you know, that's nice.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you very much. There's a comment coming from someone, Alison. She said, before we finished, I wanted to say to the whole panel, this has been really helpful, and big thank you to everybody here. And I'd like to echo that and perhaps give our panel a round of applause for all their help tonight.